Welcome to the Whiskey and Wisdom Podcast, coming to you from the Cargo District Recording Studios in Wilmington, North Carolina, where we discuss the most fascinating topics of life. I'm Tyler Yaw with my co-host, Chris Keller, and each week we interview a special guest to learn how they acquired their wisdom over a glass of whiskey. So, sit back, pour yourself a glass, and enjoy Whiskey and Wisdom. Who do we have with us today, Chris?
One of my good friends, Sammit, whom I call Sammit Marie.
That's fair. Either way.
It always throws me off. I'm like, wait, Sam? It's not Sam.
I'll respond to it. Just don't call me Samantha.
Yeah, no, it's definitely.
Fair enough.
So I know her from the good old days of visual effects makeup. We used to work together. But now she has a podcast.
Nice.
Which I'm looking to get into.
Oh, yeah. We just started that about 2 months ago, doing podcasting with local music and local bands and stuff.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Just a month longer than we've been doing, so still new to the game, too.
Chris said we're all kind of on the same path, two totally different things, but same path.
Yeah, that's neat. Before we get too far into that, what are we sipping on today, Chris?
We are sipping on some randomness I've never seen before. And that's because Tyler bought it. No, this is a Virgil Kaine ginger infused bourbon. And this one actually is kind of fancy. It's the Chef Series. Has some ginger and lime, cinnamon. So it's just different. I'm pretty sure you got this from South Carolina.
That is correct.
So we'd like to support local. I guess that's considered local.
Yeah, it's the Carolinas. We claim them, I guess.
We're close enough.
But yeah, no. It looks clean, as I say, on a regular basis.
Yeah.
It has a very light color. You can actually see some of the ginger floating in there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Let's give it a try.
Cheers.
Cheers. Very smooth.
Ooh, that's good.
This will be my new whiskey ginger.
Yeah, I'm a whiskey ginger fan,
I was
so
going to say, it doesn't
having
have
that
the
ginger.
bite either, which is really good. It's really smooth.
That's not what I was expecting.
No, when I first got it too, I was kind of weary. I was like, I like whiskey gingers. We'll give this a try, but usually like mixing too much together is like not really for me, but I'll give it a shot. But I like this a lot.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So, Sammit,
Yes.
tell us a little bit more about what you do and why you do it and how you started doing it.
So, obviously, I met Chris through special effects makeup, which is what I moved down here for 9 years ago. I did special effects for zombie nights and film and stuff like that, and we were all kind of in the same group of friends. I've been doing makeup for 13 years now, and then just recently, I started a podcast called the Elder Emo Hours, which is a podcast that talks to more of the up-and-coming bands versus the mainstream larger ones to kind of help support them, bring more attention to them. I was in a band myself. I've done the music promotion and stuff like that, and I know how hard that is to do for musicians. So me and 3 of my friends decided to start this up and see if we could help them out, and we've been going for 2 months strong, and it's been kind of surreal. Not gonna lie. It's been crazy, but
That's neat.
I love it. I don't sleep anymore, but I love it.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. What kind of band were you in?
Oh, God. I was in an all-girl rock band
Okay.
called the Queen of Hearts.
Yeah.
And the only thing that we could actually do was play Beverly Hills by Weezer. And Weezer would not be proud of us for our cover of said song. I now get PTSD every time I hear that song.
Oh, no.
No thanks. I was the drummer, and then Brittany, who was my bassist in that band, is in a part of the podcast too. So
okay.
we've 15 years later reconnected and started this podcast. So
yeah, what made you want to start a podcast about all of? I know you said you wanted to kind of help out and get them well known, but what was kind of the starting point that got you going in that direction?
So back in the day when I was in a band, Brittany and I also had a promotion company for local bands during the MySpace days.
Oh yeah.
And it was so much harder back then because MySpace, all you had was the bulletins or something that you could post on and everything. And I would the makeup hasn't been doing much for COVID because of being in close proximity with people and stuff like that. So then I've just been going to work and coming home, and I was like, I need to do something. I need to get into something because I'm literally doing nothing. It was me and my cats, and as depressing as that sound, it is. And then like just TikTok had popped up and it was throwing so many like local musicians and everything on my page, and that entire scene is making a comeback right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Like, let me take my shot at this, because podcasting is not as difficult as I thought it was to start out with. And then I messaged Brittany and I was like, hey, like, do you want to try this again? Because we failed at it so long ago. Let's try it now and see what happens. And since then, we started it, and now we've got like 24 interviews already done and about 25 more scheduled and going. So it wasn't expecting it to turn out the way that it did. We took a shot in the dark, and it worked in our favor.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
She makes our podcast look small.
Right?
You have to start somewhere.
Yes.
And TikTok, I'm telling you, TikTok's the way to do it. If you know how to work TikTok and work that algorithm.
Still trying to learn that myself. So we'll talk afterwards.
No, you definitely, it was funny because one, I've been seeing TikTok and I was like, oh, hey, you know, you're an emo if you know these songs. And I'm like, I don't think I was an emo kid. I just like this music. Mm-hmm. And then now I'm back and I'm like, but what is emo? Because then on your podcast, I've listened, and they're like, well, it's pop punk. And then some people are scene. And I'm like, wait, is there a difference between this?
Yes. I mean, being an elder emo is just one of those things. I'm sure you've heard of it when they're talking about elder emos, that it's never a phase, or it was never a phase mom. It's because back in the day, we were listening to, prime example, Simple Plan and all these other ones. We were angry at the world. We were angry at our parents for really no reason. Some people had legitimate reasons, but it was just like the whole goth, pop rock, punk rock type of scene that we all got made fun of for back in the day is making the comeback now. We still listen to the same music we did in 2006, 2007. Most of us have mental health issues or trauma. Like, it's just like, it's being an elder emo is like, it's weird. It's like the sad music, but it's also just the bands, and I'm still an alternative punk rock kid at 30. So it's never a phase.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it. Her podcast is always interesting. Yeah, because it's always fun talking to people who are in similar circles.
Yeah.
Even though they're not that similar. Because your podcast, you interview these bands, and I'm like, these are interesting stories. Like, how did you guys get started? Like, what brought you in? And then we're sitting here like, well, cheers.
Yeah.
Like, we started because we like whiskey.
Exactly. So what kind of, I know Chris touched on a few of them, but what kind of questions do you ask them to kind of promote them more?
So we always start our interviews out with, like, tell us about you, tell us about your story, how you guys met. Because sometimes we'll have an entire band on the show. Sometimes we'll have like one or two members to get their whole story. And then like what's coming up for them, talking about releases, inspiration, where you can find them, tours and stuff like that. But then we also do like icebreaker questions and stuff too. Because we're firm believers that you can love an artist for their music, but you love them even more if you know who they are outside of the music. So like we ask questions like, if you had MySpace today, what would your MySpace song be? Or
what would yours be?
The home team asked me this question on Friday. It would probably be the home team song Right Through Me, or Down for the Ride by River City Drive.
Nice.
So two totally different ends of the spectrum. One's a heartbreaker, one's an upbeat one. But that, and the other question we love to ask is, if you were a sandwich, which sandwich would you be and why?
Hot dog.
It's not a sandwich.
Oh no, we just started this.
It's not a sandwich.
What's the definition of a sandwich?
A hot dog's is a sub.
Okay, but
And
then
what is a sub?
But it's
sub?
A sub is a sandwich.
Then what about a hoagie?
It's a sandwich.
Are you sure?
Why wouldn't it be? Condiments, meat, bread.
Yeah, but a sandwich is two separated slices of bread.
Not particularly.
Okay, but a hot dog's not a sandwich.
A hot dog is a sub, and a sub is a sandwich.
Then you would also say a wrap is a sandwich. Then why don't we call all of them sandwiches? Why do they all have different names?
Why is it a slice of cake, but little brownies?
What?
Semantics.
That went down really weird.
Like, it's all these different things. Everyone just, they're like, oh, well. I'm like, it's It's all a sandwich to me. I'm like, I'm just going to go get a Sammy. I don't care what it is.
I'm right here. You can't go get me. Sorry.
But that's the things. Like in my head, I'm like, it's just like music. Everyone is, well, this is in this particular genre and this is this genre. And, you know, you can only like that. No, it's music.
Well, that's kind of the thing about the emo question of like, what is emo? What is an elder emo or anything like that? It's all the same theory, but to everybody's own interpretation at the end of the day. Yeah. We're all in the same scene. We all just define it a little bit different.
Everyone's a sandwich, just a different style.
Okay, I'll agree with that one.
No, I think that's funny. So, band in high school. Mm-hmm. How'd you transition to VFX makeup?
So that happened when I got right out of high school. So I was in an all-girl band freshman in high school. Brittany was a sophomore, and all females in one band in high school. Recipe for disaster. A lot of drama happened. The band wasn't a thing anymore, and I was always a theater kid in high school, so I always did that. And my mom's a hairdresser, so I was always the hair designer for everything. And I was also one of those ones that hated everything Halloween and horror because I'm like a scaredy cat. It'll make sense in a second. Okay. I see you looking at me. Coming out of high school, October of 2009, one of my mom's friends who does special effects for a multitude of different things way back when was putting on a haunted house and asked me to be a part of it. And literally, it was day of opening night. She was like, hey, I don't have time to get everybody in makeup. Here's my kit. Here's 20 people. You've got an hour. Go.
Wow.
So she handed me all of these things. I had no idea what it was. I was the kid in high school that didn't wear makeup myself. Mm-hmm. I showed up in sweatpants and a hoodie and my hair in a ponytail, and that was it. So then I just started playing with it and thoroughly enjoyed it. And one thing led to another, and I've done haunted houses. I've done films. I've traveled across the U.S. teaching it. I've done all kinds of things. I moved here to do it full time, and then 6 months after I got here, it left.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
It's a story that we've heard a few times.
Yeah.
Where are you from originally then?
Maryland.
Okay.
Yes. The sun doesn't shine in Maryland.
I'm from Pennsylvania, so I completely understand.
Yeah. So I'm at the southern part of Maryland, closer to Virginia, where it's literally us and Amish people.
I'm from Lancaster County, so I know
so
all about the Amish people.
You know all about the Amish people. Yeah. It's very, very country where I'm from. So music scene and stuff like that and film scene was not as big unless you went to DC or Baltimore. But getting to DC
western part of Maryland too then? Mm-hmm. So you know where Frederick is?
Yes.
Okay. I have a lot of friends in Frederick.
Yep.
So
my entire family still lives in St. Mary's County.
Okay, sure. I know exactly where that's at.
Yep.
Yeah.
You had me confused. You say Southern Maryland. I'm thinking like the little finger dangles at the end of it. Like, because Maryland is like, it's a little bar and then it has that little dip.
Yeah.
So it looks like finger dangles.
If you look at the state of Maryland, you've got the side that's on the coast where Delaware is.
Yeah.
And then you've got that middle one. I'm at the bottom end of the middle one.
Okay.
All the way down at the bottom.
I understand that now.
That's where I'm at. Well, that's where my family's at. I live here now. I bought a house. I'm here to stay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Unless we pay you enough money.
To get away? To run away?
I was going to say,
your
way to go.
I was going to say, if you're going to give me money
Chris
to run
is kicking
away,
you out now.
let's go.
Let's be real. The housing market is ridiculous. That's what I'm saying.
You can't go anywhere to buy a house these days.
No. Or a car.
Yeah, we were just talking about that in the last podcast.
God, like used cars right now are stupid expensive. And new ones, let's not even go there. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous.
There's no chips available for new cars. And so the old cars are going for more than what new cars are because you can't find a new car.
Correct.
If only I was close enough to ride a bike to work and I didn't wear a suit to work.
Well, with gas prices, you might want to invest in a moped.
I still have to wear a full suit to work, so...
It's fine. Do like a Batman, like how Clark Kent does when he goes into the phone booth.
But his suit, like his super suit, is made of some material that doesn't wrinkle. Like you can't do that with a real suit.
That's the hardest part. Mm-hmm.
So what you're telling me is you need to invest in a super suit to wear on your bike. Then you change into your suit.
No, we need to invest in an actual clothier in the area who can actually get you suits that fit you correctly and will be worn
Most
right.
importantly.
Touche.
I've still been waiting for you to start your own company there, Chris. That's right down your alley.
I would love to do that. Like, I don't know why. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Do it.
That's a big investment.
Do it.
And I invested a lot of money.
I was going to say, we have to pay off this investment first.
That's fine, but you can still do it. The one thing that I have learned over the past couple months is if you don't take the risk, it's never going to happen. Because that's like the one thing with like the podcast and the makeup thing. I took a risk on both of them, and they've paid off. But take the risk, do it.
If you don't take the risk, you can't get a reward.
You got
Correct.
that right.
That just came to my head.
It's the whiskey giving you the
Philosophical over
wisdom.
there.
So you're new to the podcast scene. So
Yes.
I'm assuming you're not making a ton of money. So what do you actually do to make money? Like, what's your real job?
So I am actually a bank manager. I'm an operational supervisor at a bank here in town.
So being in the finance world myself, that means you're very, very involved in compliance.
Yes. Yep. I make sure the building does not get shut down on a regular basis.
Yep.
Wait,
Yep.
what?
God bless
Yeah.
you.
So I work in operations, meaning I'm the one that makes sure the branch that's in compliance and doesn't get shut down. Meaning we're following all rules and regulations. We're doing things by the book. We're balancing and all of that stuff. So I'm consistently in front of a computer problem solving all day long.
Yeah, I didn't realize there's that much stuff behind a
Oh
bank.
my God. Yes. God bless the operations managers, because you're exactly right. You do keep the place from shutting down. That's 100%.
I always walk in, I'm like, oh, well, there's the person here who says, hey. And then I always fill out my paperwork and the little bank tellers. And I know there's the people hiding in their little offices, but I
That's
didn't realize that there was someone.
That's just scratching the surface. Like
Yeah.
you come into my building, we're a 2-story building. So you walk into our building and you see like people in some offices, and then of course the teller line. That's what everybody sees. But then we have a whole entire upstairs full of people that I also have to regulate, which are totally different sides of the bank.
Yeah. What you see is like 5% of what the actual
If that.
bank is. Yeah. If that.
Well, of course, because the bank makes a lot of money. And so, of course, I would assume that I only see the surface, the little bit of investing that I do. I was like, here's my money. Please hold it for me.
Here are my pennies. Hold them. Cherish them.
Got totally sidetracked. But working in the bank, you don't sleep because you're like most millennials. We talked about this earlier. You have, in order to get what you want out of life, you're doing other things to enrich yourself besides working for the man.
Correct.
So do you think the podcast is enriching you?
I think so. I've always had an interest in the arts and the music side of thing, and more of like the hosting production side of things. So I feel like this is a way for me to kind of get my ground or my footing to be able to do this maybe full time eventually. Like I would love to host a radio show or something like that that's more live. Yeah, I would love to do that. So I feel like this is just more of that stepping stone to get there, because I'm very much an introvert, complete introvert. But on a podcast, I'm so much of an extrovert that it works for me. So I'm like, this gives me my social interaction, but it also lets me stay an introvert because I do my podcast out of my bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I have my entire setup. Like I have 3 screens up plus my iPad, my mic, my headphones, all of that in there. And we do everything virtually. So we don't do anything in person. So I can do everything from my house in my pajamas.
There was a meme that I saw recently, and it's like, how to know if you're an introverted extrovert. And like, very similar to you, I probably hit all of those same marks too. People were like, oh, you're such an extrovert. And I was like, it takes a lot for me to be an extrovert, but I also love like mingling with people. And
Yes.
like, so one of the reasons why we started Whiskey and Wisdom is I have these conversations at bars. So I don't go to a bar to be extroverted. I go to a bar to watch the interactions of other people and be
Yes.
around others, not necessarily for them to interact with me unless they initiate the interaction.
Yes, I do the same thing.
He's the most extroverted introvert I've ever.
I'm the same way.
If you did, so I did the same thing when I was younger, which seems really makes me sound like an old man. But
You got that
Wait,
gray in your
you're
beard
not?
now.
I know. It's white. It's not even gray. But like Nowadays, I will go out and me and Emily will go see somebody. And I'm like, all right, good. I'm done.
Yeah.
You are not getting me out of my house for a solid 2 months. It's like, what? Like, yeah, I'm not that nice of a person. I have to fake it.
See, that's kind of where this whole, I guess it's the corporate 9-to-5 balance and everything. Because, like, working in the 9-to-5, like, yes, I do operation stuff, but I still interact with customers on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure y'all can attest to this when you're in, like, your regular jobs. But putting on that face to fake it through the day, at the end of the day, I don't want to interact with anybody else. I get home and I just immediately become a hermit. If I don't have to go out, I'm not going out.
One of the biggest things when I was in the jewelry industry, if there was like a hard sale that like I had to go through, like a engagement ring sale that took like 3 hours or something like that, because they just needed more information, just being in front of that person and keeping that face on for 3 hours. Even if I didn't make the sale, I'm like, you know what? I'm done for the day. I'm sitting in the back.
Yep.
I need to rejuvenate.
Yep. All my energy is gone. This is it. I've hit my quota for the day. Let's try again tomorrow.
Yep.
I need a nap.
I really wish you could just have a sip at work. Be like, all right, now let's go do this again.
So many times I wanted to do that, especially like in the jewelry store, because you constantly had new people coming in. Yeah. At least with my job now, I can create my schedule of when I'm talking to people, which is much nicer. But yeah, when you're in that retail industry, you're up when that person walks through the door, ready or not. Here you are.
And not only that, but I deal with a lot more of the difficult customers that come in as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, trying to have that balance of not trying to get overwhelmed, but talk to people and try and talk them down. Luckily, I'm medicated.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Let me see the manager.
But it always cracks me up because being, I mean, I'm 30, but being a younger manager in my role, it always cracks me up when people are coming in and they're like, well, I want to speak to the manager. And I'm like, hi, that's me. And they're like, no, it's not. And I'm like, but it is. What can I do for you?
Yeah.
And then they're like, I want to talk to somebody else, somebody above you. And I'm like, okay, so then I'll get like my manager. And then she'll come out and be like, okay, well, this is the manager. And I'm just sitting there like, let's try this again.
I feel like that's how it is now because so many people for so long, they expected the managers to be an old person.
Yes.
Because that's how it was. The pipeline was you worked here for 15 years, you got the assistant manager. Did another 10 years, now you're the manager. Even though you should be retiring, but nowadays I've seen it more and more because I worked in retail. So many people, like my manager when I started at Buckle was like 23 years old. I'm like, how are you younger than me and the store manager?
I feel like it comes down to, because I get that a lot, especially being in the banking industry, because most people when they think of banking, they're like, oh, it's supposed to be a bunch of old people. Yep. But it's not. But see, I have 13 years of banking experience under my belt, so that's where I got where I'm at. I was a bank teller when I came right out of college, so it's like I've worked my way up here. I've earned my way. It's not like I was just like, oh, one day I'm going to go in the bank and I'm just going to be a manager just cause.
Yeah, right.
And it's like you don't know what my resume is, but I've done this and then some. Yeah. So I feel like that's where it is like your experience and everything behind it. I've sold my soul to the banking world at this point.
I understand, me too. But to your point, though, too, and we were just talking about it before the podcast, is those older managers, they've all left. Now, the younger generation, for some reason, or maybe I know, doesn't want to go into the finance field.
Correct.
So now you're really trying hard to get these young people in, and you're going to see younger people in the banks now just because you need to retire at some point.
Oh, yeah. But I also feel like it's one of those things, like when we were in that whole like 17, 18 years old going into the bank, people that were in these positions were our age. And now it's like we are at that point in our life and we're still trying to understand how we got to this point. Because I still don't like to admit that I'm 30 most days. I wake up feeling like I'm 70. So it's like maybe it works that I work in a bank because I feel like, I'm ancient. But it's just like it's this whole age thing. I don't feel like age is real. Time's not real. Age isn't real.
I was sitting at my office the other day, and I'm about to have my second kid in probably a couple weeks.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's nerve-wracking.
Of course.
And I was sitting there, and I don't know how it came across me, but I was like just thinking about like the rest of my year and how I'm going to plan it out and whatnot. And I was like, shit, I turned 30 this year. And then just that realization just like all hit me at once. And I'm like, and I'm going to have 2 kids and. And I was like, how did I get to this point?
It's a hard pill to swallow. Like when I turned 30 last year, and I had like 2 weeks before my 30th birthday, I had like the biggest breakdown of like, oh my God, I'm 30. My life's over. Like I'm no longer like a teenager. I'm no longer like a young adult. And then I'm like, now I'm 30, but apparently 30 is the new 20.
Right.
I'm like, so you mean I get a redo? I'll take it.
I'll take it all day long.
I'll take it.
I did do a redo. Tyler was there for my, I turned 31 and my 30th birthday was the weekend after Thanksgiving. And so there was no one here. And I went out for my birthday to see my friends, and I had worked all day till like 10 o'clock. And I get to the bar and they were like, hey, we're leaving. So-and-so just threw up twice and busted her ass. So we're out. And I'm like, I'm going to do a redo. So the next year I had mentioned that I was turning 30, like 2 months in. So it was like March. And I was like, yeah, I'm turning 30 as a joke. And legitimately, when my birthday came around, people all assumed that I was turning 30. Yep. So I got a full redo. Like even my birthday cake had 30 on it. And like the waitress bringing the cake, I was like, oh my gosh, you're 30. Congratulations. And my wife now, Emily's like, no, he's 31. He's just being a dick. And I was like,
don't ruin my fun. Yeah, it's like 30 is like a huge milestone, I feel like. Well, I mean, 30 was a huge milestone for me because of other things, because I almost didn't make it to 30. So it was like when I hit 30, I was like, oh my God, I did it. Like I'm here. Yeah. 30 is this big thing. And I was like, you know what? I've made the decision that, you know how they always talk about hot girl summer that's going around? I'm going to have hot girl 30s. And I'm just going to do whatever I want.
Oh, hell yeah.
In my 30s. Yeah. I didn't do it in my 20s. I'm going to do it in my 30s.
Why not?
Definitely.
Lizzo's out here. Let's do this.
Right? Right? I still can't drink like I used to when I was 21, but...
That's true.
No. You could. You shouldn't.
No, even if you could...
My hangovers
the
last 3 days
hangovers are still longer.
They last at least a good 3 days now.
Yeah. Did you know Lizzo has a whole, like, Amazon Prime TV show?
Yes. I just discovered that.
Yeah. It's about, like, she was tired of having, like, all her dancers... Everywhere you see is all skinny chicks. She's like, I'm a big girl. Fuck that. And so she legit has a whole show about her recruiting and finding dancers that are all big girls to go with her.
I love her in every aspect of her. She's so confident and she puts so much confidence in everybody else. Because like me, I'm also a bigger girl. So like, I get it. Society hates us, bigger women, when it comes down to it, honestly. So the fact that she's over here and she's like, you know what? Like, I'm not standing for this. I'm like, you get him, gun. Like, you get him. You make it happen, because then you make me feel a little bit more confident when I walk out of my house every single day. The
one thing that I think I hate most about society is if you're outside of that bell curve at all, whether you're quote unquote too big or quote unquote too small, you're just ostracized altogether.
Yep.
So whether you're a Lizzo or if you're a Victoria's Secret model, then you're just kind of tossed to the side. And it was like, oh, you know what? You're too big. You're too small. You're not what we want. And I'm like, what? You're trying to be inclusive, but you're excluding the, like, what's going on?
I hate it. Especially when it comes to dating. Oh my God. Dating's even worse.
I'm glad I'm out of that field. My wife and I were talking about that the other day. Like, I can't even imagine what dating would be these days.
You're so damn lucky.
Tinder, Bumble, all that other stuff, they're gazebos. They're bullshit.
I believe it.
He got lucky. They met before that became super popular.
Yeah.
And then I got stupid lucky. Like, I met Emily online as Bumble was doing that transition. Because, everyone leaves Tinder and moves to the next thing and then moves to the next thing. And I literally met her. And then I could see it on the app, like, of course, I didn't delete it right away because you never know. But within a month, I was like, all of these people, no, I'm not paying for you to go out and meet me. I don't make the kind of money you think I do.
But see, also right now is in that major hookup culture.
Yes.
And I hate it. Like, I'm not just going on one of these things and be like, hey, let's have a one night stand. I don't know who you are, because if you make a mistake, I ain't getting stuck with it.
You got that right.
Like, I'm not doing that. I got a little, no offense to people that do it, but I have a little bit more respect for myself. Like, you got to at least take me to dinner and get to know me, and I get to know you before that happens, because 18 years is a very long time.
Yeah, it is.
I want kids, but not.
But I mean, it's really not in the grand scheme of things.
I'm 30 years old. I would be almost 50.
So listen, Chris. I know you don't have kids. 18 years in life may not seem long unless you were raising kids. And I've only had mine for my first one for almost 2 years.
Yes, we're almost 2 years.
And just that 2 years. I love him to death, but he is crazy.
I have cats. That's as far as I go. I have fur children.
I'm okay with that.
I had fur babies too, and even fur babies gets pretty crazy at times.
I now accidentally have 5 fur babies, so that tells you where I'm at in life. Single woman living in a house with 5 fur kids.
Don't go down the street; they're selling rabbits.
I got 2 kittens yesterday. Now I don't know why.
Did you mean to get 2 kittens?
No. I was okay. So I have 3 cats. Then I got one when I moved down here, another one that's an attention whore, and then I've got a cat that's special needs. And she only makes left turns, and she's adorable. But I went into Petco yesterday to get, I needed to get litter and food and all this other stuff. And they were having an adoption event. And there was all these adult cats and everything else. But then there was these 2 little black kittens. They were terrified, and they were cuddled together, and they were hiding. And, I went up to them and started interacting with them, and they both, melted. And then I melted, and I got weak. And now I have 2 black cats that I named Winnie and Binks after Hocus Pocus.
That's awesome.
You didn't already had a Binks?
No.
What are your other cats' names?
I have Figaro, who is a diva and an asshole. She's the great one.
Okay.
I've got Quinn, who's the tortie. She's very loud and an attention whore. And then I've got Bitsy, who's the gray and white one.
Bitsy.
Who's special needs and only makes left turns. And now I've got Winnie and Binks, who are 3 months old.
That just makes me laugh. Because you go back and she was like, well, in high school, I was afraid of Halloween and scary things. And now she's like, well, I have 2 cats named after Hocus Pocus characters and covered in Halloween
I was
tattoos.
just about to bring that up too when you were talking about that. And I was like, and now you're covered in Halloween tattoos.
I am. And I've got some on my legs too. So
did that come because of the artist and makeup and all of that? Did it come afterwards, or was it like a gradual transition?
It was a little bit of a gradual transition because I hated haunted houses. I hated horror movies. It in the Addams Family, the hand terrified me. I was so afraid. I would not watch the Addams Family because of that little freaking hand that walked around.
I feel like the cousin was more freaky.
No.
True that.
Well, you know what? I never got through the movie long enough to. I saw the hand and I was done. I also watched it when I was 4 because I was insistent on watching a clown movie, and my parents were like, "Okay,
Here you go."
It's because you're a millennial.
yeah."
Every single person I know, I hate clowns because I watched it when I was under 7.
I'm still terrified of clowns. However, the It remakes from 2017 and 2019 or whatever, 2 of my favorite movies ever. I screamed the entire time I was in the movie theaters, but they're both my favorite movies. But I think being in the special effects makeup and stuff like that showed me that it's not real, and I can make it. So it was it's taking out the actual scare factor for me, especially for haunted houses, because I know it's not real. I was like, I can do that. I can do that. That's easy.
I didn't become scared of clowns until I realized it was actually based off of a real life human being. And that kind of.
Did you not know that?
No.
John Wayne Gacy?
Oh.
Are you talking about the serial killer?
Yeah.
I didn't know he was a clown.
Yeah.
Are you living under a rock?
I don't do serial killer TikTok. I know
it's not on TikTok. It's everywhere.
I was going to say.
He's historical.
But see, the thing is, I know a lot of things, but I can't connect them all the time. So yes, I know that name. How did I know he was a serial killer? I don't know.
He was 100% a clown, and that was what the It movies were based off of.
Oh.
Yep. There's your fun fact for the day.
Yeah, see? The randomness I get.
Look, I can spit you random movie quotes and things like that all day long. Like I did that at the bank the other day. Our air and everything was broken, so it was like 60-something degrees in the building, which in most instances is great. But when you're in like a huge industrial building and it's 60, it's like 40.
Yes.
So I had messaged our guy, and I was like, look, it's cold in here. I was like, and the only way that I could get his attention was I was cracking Disney puns in our chat back and forth. And it worked. And then I got the air fixed. I went from Elsa to Hades to Hercules all in a day.
Love it.
It's great.
So, because the things you've been doing for a long time. And I know you've had recognition for your visual effects makeup.
Yes.
What was I feel like you went to some, like, it's not Comic-Con. You went to, are they all just cons?
They're cons of different, they're conventions.
Okay.
Ultimately. Con is convention. So if you're talking about New Orleans.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got invited to teach at HauntCon, which is the biggest haunted house convention in the United States to teach makeup for haunts and things like that. I got invited 3 years in a row. And that was one of the craziest experiences because, like, I watch Face Off, I watch Skin Wars, which are makeup and body effects shows, and going to those events, I was able to network and become friends with the people that I fell in love with on them.
Wow.
And collaborate with them. I reach out to them if I've got questions and things like that, and we all recognize each other. So that was cool. I'm also Kennedy Center nominated. I'm also Watch Award nominated, which is Washington Area Theater Community Honors for DC for makeup. Plus, I'm known across the states for what I do. I am no V. Neil. I did not create Beetlejuice. But I've got some people know who I am.
That's insanely incredible, though. Yeah. Especially coming from, like, not liking Halloween at all to just, like, kind of catching the bug and going on with it. That's awesome.
Yep.
I feel like you're like those movie actors who some people know them specifically for something. Like, they could be out in the middle of the crowd and you're like, look like a normal person, but that one kid is like, oh my God, I know them. Yes. And that's you. People will be like, oh my God, I saw your work.
It's weird.
Like your Gordall's album. I was like, oh my gosh.
But what's also hysterical is, like, when I go on and work on film sets and stuff like that, like, I go by the Gordalls, which is where I do all the makeup stuff under. And I can't tell you how many sets I've been on in a Gordall shirt or whatever. And people will come up to me and be like, oh, do you know the owner? Do you know Sammit? Like, have you worked with her before? And I'm like,
it's like, well,
hi, that's me. And they're like, no way. And I'm like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
I do it.
Right.
I'm here.
Just like people, I want to speak to the manager. And you're like,
spin around just once. Hi, nice to meet you.
That killed me the other day. I saw that TikTok. The old lady was like, oh, I want to speak to the manager. And the lady's sitting there at like some beach resort thing. She's like, okay, hold on. And she literally ducked and spun around and came up and said, hi, that's me. Have a good day.
Yep. I love it.
It's like when I was early in the jewelry industry too. I was a young assistant manager. So if the manager was out, obviously I was manager on duty, and people would be like, I want to talk to the manager. And I was like, okay, how can I help you? And they're like, can you even drink yet? I'm like, no, but I'm still the one that's going to be to help you here.
I'm still making the decisions.
So if you want to continue to make my life harder, continue.
Which is crazy to think. Like I said, sometimes you get into industries and people assume that you have to be a certain age to do things. I had a friend from high school who has been the manager of Plato's Closet for like 15 years almost. Like, she got the assistant manager position while we were in high school. Wow. Turned 18 and like, oh, you're the store manager. And I'm like, wait, what? This is just crazy. But I think it's just because we're in that new evolution. Because, like you said, when we were kids, we looked up and you're like, oh, they're old. And now we're like,
they were our age.
Yeah, they weren't. They definitely weren't old.
No. It's but I feel like generationally, it's also weird. It's a weird. I feel like we're in a weirder generation than most of them, because we're in that middle generation of, hey, we need to work ourselves into the ground like our parents did, versus YOLO. Right. Whereas the generation after us, so because my brother's 7 years younger than me, so he's in, was it Gen X? Is that what that generation
Zebra.
is?
Gen Z, yeah.
Gen Z, that one. Gen X. Pretty sure that was a disease, was it not?
It's the stuff that DuPont keeps putting in our water.
Right. So like with him being a part of Gen Z, he's kind of living wild and free. Like he has a regular job, but he also does whatever he wants and doesn't think anything about it. Me, if I make a decision, I'm like, okay, am I going to regret this in 6 months? What's it going to do? Like, where am I going to be in 10 years? And I stop myself from it. So I feel like we're in that weird transitionary period, but we're trying to, I think we're gravitating towards the free will of Gen Z more so than anything else.
I'm sure you being in the finance industry too, that you hear probably ad nauseum that we're in the largest transition of wealth ever.
Yes.
That's what they tell us all the time. And I'm one of those persons that I ask myself why like 15 times before I come up with even a semi answer. And I'm thinking about like why it's happening. What does it mean when it's happening? And it's kind of what we're talking about here. It's not just the transition of wealth, but the transition of
Power?
I guess power and responsibility, because with power comes responsibility. We're in that transition right now. And then after COVID, a lot of this older generation is saying, you know what? I think I'm just going to kind of do this on my own now. I'm going to leave my stuff behind. So that transition of wealth and power and responsibility came within 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
Here you go.
Oh, yeah. And I feel like COVID had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
Like with everybody being in this position where theoretically we were home for 2 years or in strict orders for 2 years. If you notice, so many brand new small businesses came out of that to where people are struggling to find employees because people took that as the chance to be like, you know what? I can't do anything anyway. I can't do my real job. Let me do what I've always wanted to do and take it and run with it. And that's kind of where like circling back to our podcast for the Elder Emo Hours is the amount of music and bands and musicians and artists that came out of that is insane. So I don't want to say we're riding on the high of that, but it's like if we can get in on that to then grow with this community, then we'll be doing what we love in 2 to 5 years.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
At the end of the day.
And we were talking about this before the podcast too, is a lot of the musicians that I listen to right now and that I love and enjoy and follow, and to the same point is kind of following their lives, have come off of TikTok.
Yep.
It's crazy, and I love it because I'd rather support a starting budding musician. So people know this on the podcast at this point. So I was a DJ, and along with that is I became a part of a lot of communities where you get involved in early artists and trying to promote them through your DJing. So you might be playing Kanye, and then you'll play some new local artist coming up, and people are like, oh shit, like this is awesome.
Yep. And
then you go back into playing Drake. And so just kind of being in that community too was really neat, but just seeing it grow exponentially now, just because I'm still, I have my feelers in it just because I enjoy it. But just watching that is amazing. And you being part of that and having a podcast is just right up my alley. That's fantastic.
Oh, yeah. And it's really cool to watch because where we are now, artists and everything are so much more accessible now, especially when it comes to their music. A lot of the smaller ones, like obviously we have our more mainstream ones that we listen to, like Kanye and things like that. But we have the way that TikTok and everything has shown it is it's giving the artist the chance to take their music back. There's so many more independent artists than there are with major labels.
Yeah.
So it gives you the ability to connect with them on a more personal level and actually help them get from point A to point B because they're doing everything by themselves.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like this is where we're in that comeback era for local music because they're also taking their music back and they're taking the scene back.
Yeah.
And it's creating so many things. Like, prime example, there's a band on TikTok called Arrows in Action that I've discovered. And they're a pop punk band out of Florida, live in Nashville. And they played their cards just right and have been promoting their music and things on TikTok. And they went from being a very small artist to having almost 500,000 followers and things like that just by using TikTok and things that they have that's accessible to them to grow everything that they have.
That's
they don't
awesome.
need a label. Or most people are like, hey, we'll go for a label, but go for a smaller one that's like, hey, here's 10 grand to help you get done with your EP and your record. Instead of, hey, sign your life away for me for 7 years, give me 15 albums, 12 tours, and all this other stuff. Because then all you're doing for 12 years is working to pay their label back.
And you don't have royalties.
No.
Like you don't get access to any of that.
That was one of the things too. Two of the people I started following on TikTok before they even got big It's one of those bittersweet moments where they both signed with Warner Brothers. And I was like, damn it.
Yeah.
I can say that now because I'm not in the industry anymore. Because before they would have been like, guess what? You don't have any more access to free music. Have fun. But it's just one of those bittersweet things. So like they got the record deal that they wanted, but I don't think they wanted Warner Brothers.
No. Because
that's what you're talking about. You sign your life away when you start with them. And that's it. You are now part of the machine. And yeah, you'll if you're lucky enough and you hit the right promotions, you'll make a lot of money, but it's probably not doing exactly what you want to do.
No, and it's a lot of the artists now, if you really sit and talk to them, it's what we've noticed in our podcast, a lot of our artists went to college for marketing, which I feel like is a smart thing to do right now.
Very smart.
So they've done that. They've taken that and put it into their bands and their music, and it's taken them everywhere. And all of them are so connected. Like we interviewed the home team based out of Seattle, Washington on Friday, but they also know the Arrows in Action that we interviewed. They know Patrick from Not My Weekend that we interviewed, who's in California, or a friend circle that's in Jersey. Everybody's connected in this industry now to where it's supportive versus cutthroat.
Yes.
We were just talking about that in a podcast a couple weeks ago too, where the community now is just so much more accepting and of building each other up and not as cutthroat as what you were saying. You're no longer a enemy to them. Yeah. But if you're listening to them, that means you'll also listen to me. That means we can be friends. We can share our communities. Correct. And I think that builds such a better community, really, in the grand scheme of things, much stronger, exponentially.
And that was one of the fears that we had going into this, because being burnt so bad from the MySpace era when we did all of this, because back then, like, yes, bands were good, musicians were good, but the era that we were in is it was all for yourselves. Like there was no, like there was support, there were street teams, but it wasn't, bands were not really helping bands all that much unless they could prove themselves. Yeah. Whereas now, it's like I said, when we started this, we weren't expecting anything, and we've interviewed all of these bands, and these bands are just as supportive as we are, because they're like, "Hey, we love what you're doing. We support what you're doing. Like nobody else gives us this time of day." So it's the fact that we're doing something, they're mutually giving it back. It's just kind of like, is this real life? Yeah. Like, is this really a thing? Like I've created friends with more bands than I ever have, and it's not a weird thing. At the end of the day. No.
I think I see a little bit more kind of like rap and pop on my side of social media than punk. I do see quite a bit of like punk and rock too, just because I get a lot of music to my TikTok, but especially in the pop and rap theme. And I'm sure it's same on your side too. There's a ton of collaboration right now. That is incredible. I love it. And the music sounds so much better too, because Chris and I were talking about this previous, that some things just sound exactly the same for so long. But when you're collaborating, you get an extra artistic feel to it and an extra spin. Yes. And that's fantastic.
And it's one of those things that your artists that are collaborating are artists of completely different genres. Yeah. Yes. Prime example, Ed Sheeran just came out with a collaboration with Bring Me the Horizon. Yeah. And you would never think, you've got this sad pop guy who creates all the ballads that'll make you crumble in a song, with Bring Me the Horizon, which is a harder screamo type of band, making this mashup, and it was freaking incredible.
Yeah, I saw that one too a couple of days ago.
That's the type of thing that's happening now. Or there's another band that we met out of Florida they're called 408, and they just got released. Like they just released a brand new music video called Mark Hoppus, and they were on Alternative Press, all these other ones, like all these big things. But on theirs, they had Magnolia Park, who was a really, really big up-and-coming band, and Kellen Quinn from Sleeping with Sirens on the track. Kellen Quinn from Sleeping with Sirens, who has been around forever, he's the one that introduced me to MGK.
Oh, wow.
Because they collaborated with him in like 2009.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Back before he swapped.
Yeah.
Correct. Because they had him featured on one of Sleeping with Sirens songs.
Okay.
And he's been collaborating on all of these things, and it's just like, he's everywhere. But it's one of those things now, you see these artists that are taking their platform to the underdogs and pushing it out there, making it like taking their platform and helping everybody else. And I feel like that's the way that it should be. And there's a lot of bands now that are making comebacks, like Alexis on Fire, Simple Plan's releasing a new album. Sum 41, they're going on tour together. Hawthorne Heights is also another one that's still playing music.
Papa Roach is making a big comeback.
Right. Bowling for Soup, like all of these ones that we grew up with have all been like, yeah, it's 2022. Like we're going back full time.
And I feel like all their contracts ended. Because I've been seeing it on TikTok too. Like all the people I listened to growing up, and I was like, oh my God, I love this. Because you were talking about like people competing for everything. And me being the total basic white chick as a kid, I listened to JoJo and I was like, I don't know why. Love that girl. She could sing. And I didn't realize how bad contracts were. Like she was one of those like Britney Spears trapped in contract hell. She's finally out of it, and she's singing her own music and did the Taylor Swift, re-recorded all of her stuff. And I didn't realize the reason they went silent is because they were trapped in a contract. And they're like,
Big Time Rush is another one. So I didn't realize this about Big Time Rush because, Big Time Rush was a big thing on Nickelodeon.
yes.
And then they fell off the face of the earth for a while. They all did their own separate projects. But what I had found out was like Big Time Rush was also one of those ones that was tied under a contract. They couldn't get royalties to anything or own anything that they did, but their contract expired and they bought it back.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, that's why they've also made a comeback to do whatever they want to do because they own everything originally and they're doing it themselves. And that's why I say the comeback era that we're in right now is insane. Insane. And I am so here for it.
What I'm excited about is these new artists coming up are seeing this too.
Yes.
It's posted everywhere, so they know not to sell their souls to the devil because there's another way to do it.
Yes.
And that's what I'm excited about. You get the true version of these artists now, not these watered down Warner Brothers music artists.
Yes. And they can do what they want, how they want, and still keep it for themselves. Like, and that's because so fun fact, artists make more money on Apple Music than they do on Spotify.
Yep.
Told you.
So granted, it's not a whole lot, but it's still more. So I've switched it to where I play everything on Apple Music because I know it gives them a fraction of a penny more than it does on Spotify. And I was like, I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't asked the question.
No.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you can put a little bit more money in that band's pocket, you're not just providing for the merch or the tour or the gas. Like, you're providing for their livelihood and the ability for them to do other things. And it makes it so much more worth it.
That's crazy.
But the problem is, I am not an Apple person. So I still have to respect.
Killing me.
Yeah. I mean,
you can still have iTunes.
True. But Google Podcasts is really good. Like, that's how I get music because I have Google Music and Amazon Prime Music. So, like,
Google Podcasts.
We are too. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Oh, see. You knew more than most people.
Give myself a shameless plug.
Oh, we'll give you
Take
plenty.
it. Yeah, we'll give you a bunch of plugs too. Don't worry.
No, it's just crazy to think that, like, I feel like part of the reason everyone is able to do that comeback is because these younger artists are still low key, like, oh, hey, I published a song on Spotify. I published like an EP, like here or there, and they can take and publish it, and they can get moved into the daily mix for somebody. And I'm like, oh, I've never heard that guy before, or I know that person.
Yes.
So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. If they can do it themselves, it's more for them.
Oh yeah.
And I'm all about sticking it to the man when it comes to that. I would rather stick it to the man and help the artists themselves versus anything else. But
well, we're starting to come up on that time. I just looked down and I noticed how much longer we were talking, which is always a good problem to have. But before we sign off, if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
probably don't get stuck in the society of the fact that you have to be an adult and lose the things that brought you so much joy as a kid.
I love that.
Because that's kind of where it was. Music has always been a thing for me. Mm-hmm. Music and like the artistry and stuff like that. And I thought once I got out of college, I had to be an adult and none of that mattered anymore. And now if I had to have stuck to that when I came out of college, I'd probably been doing a lot different things right now.
Yeah.
So take the risk. Just because you're an adult doesn't mean you have to lose interest in everything that brings you joy.
I love it. And even having a younger son now too, just seeing the way that he experiences the world of not having societal pressures, even as a 2-year-old, it's crazy because like he dances when he wants to.
Yep.
He'll try anything without any regards to safety. And just kind of going out on a limb. And I was like, you know what? Imagine if we kind of saw life through a 2-year-old's eyes. It kind of brings a new perspective.
Yes. If we could have done that when we were growing up or in college or things like that, I feel like we all would be doing a little bit different things right
Absolutely. Yep. Well, go ahead. Give yourself some shameless plugs right now. This is your time.
Oh, well, I am Sammit. I am the host of the Elder Emo Hours podcast that is on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Samsung Podcasts, as well as iHeartRadio. And we release new episodes every single Wednesday. We have emo nights on every Wednesday, live on TikTok. So you can always come in and hang out with those. We do live events every other weekend. We do what we call an emo sleepover, which is where myself and all of our hosts do a live event to kind of talk about the bands we've interviewed, what's going on. We play stupid games and shot games, which is fun. And then we have a lot of exciting things that we're getting ready to release that we can't really talk about now, but they're coming. We just released season 1 less than about 10 days ago as of today. And then we'll be releasing season 2 in about a week. And then season 3 not too long after that.
Sweet.
So
that's great. A lot of big stuff coming up.
Oh, yes. It's, like I said, it's surreal. For 2 months, it's surreal.
Whiskey and Wisdom comes out every Wednesday at 6 a.m. And then right after that, you have all the time to watch the lives that you guys have going on and listen to the podcast.
Yes. And our podcast episodes release at 9 a.m. on Wednesdays.
Oh, perfect.
So you can listen to both Whiskey and Wisdom and us at the same time.
There you go.
You listen to us before work and you listen to
us on your lunch break.
Yep.
To get you through that last half of the day.
So Elder Emo Hour or Hours?
Hours. The Elder Emo Hours.
Okay.
Because we're all a bunch of 30-somethings that are elder emos and elder millennials.
I like it. Thank you all for listening again. This was a fun one this week. Come back next week. Let your friends and family members know. And we have a Buy Me a Coffee. You can check us out on Instagram on our link tree. Thank you so much for listening again. Have a good one.
Goodbye.
Cheers.